in HD music with your news, weather, and traffic. This is Rizzo TV.
Our top stories here at Rizzo TV, the big picture. Breaking news, a dangerous white nationalist rally happened right in Virginia over the weekend. The Virginia governor declares a state of emergency to bring everything under control. The latest information is coming up. And developing right now, Trump is intensifying his militaristic rhetoric against threats from North Korea. And we're going to be telling you about what exactly is happening in terms of this crisis in America. Could we be on the fringe of war? Stay tuned for the latest news on this story and the latest in our Politics Corner analysis. Also happening right now, train chaos. New figures are just come in for last week's millionaire's tax, and we're going to be telling you about how much money it's actually going to be costing you guys. In terms of whoever's going to be having the millionaire's tax, should it go through, we're going to have the new figures that have just come in of how much money it will be costing the city to fix the city's trains and for half-price Metro cards as well. So we'll keep you up to speed on all that information, and that's all coming up. And as I was referencing earlier, we have our new segment this episode of Politics Corner. Trump versus North Korea and the Korean War of the 1950s. So we're going to be drawing some parallels between North Korea and World War II and how catastrophic this impending doom of a conflict with North Korea could be. It could be probably just as bad as the Korean War of the 1950s. Although it's not going to happen yet. But should it actually happen, we're going to be telling you how bad it actually will get in our political analysis for this topic. And we also have the latest information of the latest candidates regarding who will be president come 2020. So could these 4 or 5 candidates up for grabs for the Trump presidency actually beat Trump to the punch in 2020 to avoid him from making a second term in office? We'll explain in our Politics Corner. And we also have an abbreviated version this week of your upcoming holidays, weather, and traffic updates, and that'll all be coming up next, right after the news. That's all coming up today on Rizzo TV HD News.
Thank you for joining us in this edition of Rizzo TV HD News on this Monday, August 14, 2017. I am John Rizzo reporting from Dyker Heights, Brooklyn. We begin with breaking news here at Rizzo TV HD News. A white nationalist rally broke out in Charlottesville, Virginia this past Saturday, and it was abruptly ended by a violent car crash. A car ran into a group of demonstrators who the suspect considered to be quote-unquote anti-racist. One person was killed, and 19 other individuals were injured during the incident. Just 7 miles southwest of the demonstration area, a Virginia State Police helicopter non-maliciously crashed, killing both state troopers inside. The troopers have been identified as Virginia State Police helicopter pilot Lieutenant H.J. Cullen and trooper pilot Burke M. Bates. The Unite the Right group hosted the noon rally at Emancipation Park, along with hundreds of supporters. Demonstrators gathered together at the spot that morning before things took a dramatic turn before the protest began. Charlottesville State Governor McAuliffe declared a state of emergency following the city declaring the right-wing protest unlawful, prompting state police and the Virginia National Guard even to surround the park in order to bring the crowd under control. The authorities put a stop to the protest before it could even officially begin at 12 p.m. on Saturday afternoon. Later on, a 32-year-old woman was crossing the street when she was struck and killed by a driver who was trying to run down a bunch of counter-protesters. The suspected driver has since been in police custody. Witnesses described the suspect's car speeding up over the course of 2 blocks to then hit the counter-protesters and then back up in an attempt to flee the scene. 5 of the 19 injured in the crash are being listed in critical condition. The Unite the Right rally attracted close to 6,000 people to join together in a march within a controversial event to unify the far right wing and, quote, affirm the right of Southerners and white people to organize their interests, end quote. The city governor remarked that the declaration of an emergency state was necessary for authorities to curtail the entire ordeal. He condemned white nationalists and members of the other extreme groups, for their behavior at a press conference on Saturday afternoon. White nationalists, along with members affiliated with the ideology of the neo-Nazis and members of the Triple K, clashed with clergy members and other groups that try to counter the rally. The counter-protesters sang "This Little Light of Mine" to overpower the racial slurs and profanity exiting the mouths of the rally's participants. Authorities have reported 35 injuries from the rally, with 14 of them becoming hurt in, quote, individual engagements, end quote. The president condemned the clashing protest incident in a tweet calling for everyone to be united despite their condemnation of hate. On the night before the rally, white supremacists holding flaming torches collided Friday night with counter-protesters at Virginia University. Their chants called for no racial prejudice and echoed anti-Trump sentiments across the country. The march at the college campus lasted up to about 20 minutes, and one person was taken under arrest by police for disorderly conduct. Several others were treated with minor injuries, and both sides said that they were hit by pepper spray from authorities. Turning next to our developing story regarding President Trump and his feisty rhetoric towards North Korea in response to the abroad nation's nuclear threats made in recent days. On Thursday, the president told reporters that his words that the United States would strike North Korea back with quote-unquote fire and fury was not harsh enough upon addressing the situation with North Korea earlier last week. Nuclear tensions are currently still at this time sizzling between both nations, while many American critics are indicating that the harsh banter between Kim Jong-un, leader of North Korea, and the commander-in-chief, namely Donald J. Trump, as reckless and inappropriate foreign policy behavior. Trump made it clear that North Korea has been testing the patience of the United States for a very long time. Having made much progress in terms of strengthening their long-range nuclear weapons, North Korea received a response from Trump on top of his original warning made just 2 days prior, when remarking on North Korea's intentions to strike a missile against the U.S. Pacific territory and strategic base of Guam. The president made it clear that he is not daring North Korea and that American forces will no doubt strike back. He is declaring also that this is what will happen should North Korea follow through with their plan to go after Guam. Democrats at home are urging the president to use diplomacy in order to resolve the foreign policy issue instead of feisty verbal confrontation. And more than 60 Democrats in the House of Representatives sent a letter to Secretary of State Rex Tillerson on Thursday, and the letter asked him personally to restrain the president from acting further in the same manner. Trump went on to say that while he is open to negotiation, his last 3 presidential predecessors failed to peacefully settle with North Korea using diplomacy, citing that the United States has tried to negotiate with the Asian nation for the last 25 years. The president, moreover, said that he doubts that the economic sanctions widely passed by the United Nations National Security Council last weekend would prove to be effective. However, the commander-in-chief said that he would indeed negotiate with China by pulling away from a planned trade war if Beijing would help more to resolve the debacle with North Korea. The president didn't officially say under what conditions the United States would strike back against the nation, and the United States probably would carry out a preemptive strike if Pyongyang does not attack. Check out a video link posted on our Facebook page where you can watch some of Trump's remarks regarding the nuclear missile situation with North Korea. And stay with Rizzo TV HN News for continuing coverage regarding the escalating tensions between the United States and North Korea, as well as further developments during the first term of Trump's presidency. We turn now to a story that we told you about in our last episode regarding new numbers released regarding the millionaire's tax that has been officially released online. New York City Mayor de Blasio announced Monday at a press briefing his proposal of a millionaire's tax on those who fall above the middle class category in terms of their annual income. De Blasio's rationale behind the proposal is that wealthy New Yorkers should pick up the financial slack for repairing the city's subway system and to fund reduced fare MetroCards for low-income travelers. The new proposal comes on the heels of Mayor de Blasio and Governor Cuomo fighting over whether the state or the city bears the responsibility on fixing the city's trains. It has just been estimated that by next year, the newly proposed tax would help to raise $700 million for the city's public transportation system that is in desperate need of repairs. The figure would increase annually thereafter to $820 million. About 800,000 low-income New Yorkers are anticipated to benefit from the $250 million that will be allocated from the tax to fund half-price MetroCards. Short-term repairs as part of MTA Chairman Joe Lota's 30-point action plan would amount to $836 million to get the ball rolling, with the new signal system installations during the second phase of the plan to cost at a bill of approximately $8 billion. $500 million of the $800 million expected annual funding from this tax is expected to be raised if the tax is approved by lawmakers up in Albany. The additional approximately $2,500 per year that upper-class New Yorkers would have to pay if this goes through will help to fund repairs of the city's rapidly deteriorating subway system. If the proposal is approved by the legislature up in Albany, individuals making more than $500,000 or more will have to pay 53% more of an increase on their annual taxes. Mayor de Blasio is holding Governor Cuomo to his word of promising $8 billion in state funds to be given to the city for subway repairs. Cuomo has now recently suggested for companies to sponsor subway stations for an annual fee in order to generate more very needed financial capital for the city. The funding disagreement between the two dignitaries has now got Governor Cuomo also looking at congestion pricing to raise additional revenue for the momentous subway and bus overhaul. First introduced by former Mayor Bloomberg, congestion pricing would charge motorists a small toll charge for entering the most heavily trafficked areas of the Manhattan borough of New York City. The new mayoral proposal from Bill de Blasio is expected to be presented to the state government in the coming days, with now millions of tax dollars now at stake, and no word yet on when lawmakers will be able to vote on the measure. And thanks so much for staying with us here at Rizzo TV HN News. We are starting a special segment now called Politics Corner, where we will begin to break down all the politics behind the scenes action behind the current pressing news events. So a triple behind there. Today we're going to be talking about Trump and North Korea's heated military exchange, and if we can see if President Trump will be looking at a second term come the year 2020. So let's get started. So this is what we have now. Tensions are rising high between the United States and North Korea since the nation abroad voiced their threat to strike the west coast of the United States, and later stating their plan to, by the middle of this month, to send a nuclear missile towards Guam. And that Guam is actually a U.S. strategic stronghold in the Pacific. But then political analysts now are saying, right from the get-go, that any actual military conflict between the United States and North Korea would most likely lead to the use of nuclear weapons. So that's pretty crazy, isn't it? Such a development would actually bring casualty numbers to at least the thousands, and more specifically to figures not even seen since World War II. So that's pretty impressive. Experts are also saying that amped-up language between the leader of North Korea, Kim Jong-un, and the lately unpredictable according to some people, U.S. President Donald Trump raises the risk of a mistake that could happen, and that would cause a nuclear war between the two nations and make that a dire reality. So now, after North Korea announced its plan to attack Guam, leaders in the United Nations strictly passed, with flying colors mind you, strict economic sanctions on North Korea in an attempt to curtail their nuclear threats. However, though North Korea continued to test the two intercontinental missiles that have been structured to carry out a nuclear attack on U.S. soil. So that even was happening even after we issued the economic sanctions. So the alert level on North Korea has now not been raised yet. And no other similar threats are coming from South Korea or other Asian nations, which is really great news. Now, should the United States get into a situation that they need to strike back, American allies will have to be called on by the United Nations and the President to come to our defense, of course. And millions of lives, of course, would be between North Korea and the United States, between both nations, and all that mileage to be extreme jeopardy and probably no longer existing if this war actually happens. Experts went on to say if such military discourse between the two nations persists, a nuclear war with casualties beyond that of the 1950 to 1953 Korean War could result. The war during the 1950s claimed about 50,000 American troops and millions of Korean citizens. So then that conflict ended in a armed truce and not really a peace treaty. So the history could in fact maybe repeat itself maybe 50 years later. Well, maybe we shall see. Many troops and huge weapons arsenals are still placed along both sides of the contentious demilitarized zone established after the Korean War. And this area that we're talking about is situated on the nation of Korea on a peninsula. So since then, North Korea has acquired scores of nuclear weapons and increased abilities to develop a variety of missiles to carry them out in an attack. The stakes now are even higher, and even more so now. The president plans to fight back if North Korea lays a finger on Guam, and a nuclear counterattack will be absolutely the last resort for the United States. The president even says that negotiations are still on the table, but of course he made it clear talking tough and following through with actions are what get things done. And this was actually, in fact, one of the finest trademarks of the Trump campaign over the last year, leading up into the November 2016 presidential election. So we can only hope and pray that such tense conversation between the two nations and threats from North Korea to really not come to fruition in a full-blown missile explosion of war. And so it's really up to the leaders in power to decide the fate of this uncertain world regarding such a troubling issue that has resurfaced all these years later during the infancy of Trump's presidency. Turning next now to the prospective Trump 2020 second term now. And speaking of Trump, let's continue to talk Trump. And why not? He's, after all, our president. But what would you think about how politicians and leaders, listen to this, the leaders already in power that are already looking behind the scenes to the November 2020 election. And that's crazy, isn't that? It's crazy, right? We got a new president, but I'm telling you why this is happening. And it all goes back to this. It is no secret that Trump was widely accepted across this country. He does have a share of supporters, but it is evident that not everybody likes him, with many anti-Trump rallies still happening across the country since he became elected. Trump's approval rating is actually in the 30th percentile range, and in fact anti-Trump sentiments have resurfaced in the night, actually just recently, prior to this past Saturday's foiled white nationalist rally down in Charlottesville, Virginia. So it went from into Friday night into Saturday morning. This Trump presidency has divided this country so much that it's been so hard for even Americans to come together, especially even now during the time of crisis with North Korea. And now it's even more crucial than ever for Americans to stand behind Trump, otherwise they could die should nuclear war break out between the U.S. and North Korea. But I rest my case. I can honestly tell you this. The most promising candidate that has indicated that he will definitely run, should the conditions allow, is Vice President Mike Pence. It's just so hard to believe that even he would even think of sitting at the Oval Office come the next presidential term, when not only has Trump now just taken office just merely months ago, but also because of his political schedule is just so jam-packed in addition to his vice presidential responsibilities. So can you imagine if you wanted to put on top of that? He's, after all, qualified with so much experience, of course, and then the presidency will be the next leg up as the president of the United States. But like his other future running mates, he still manages to find time to make political connections and secure future campaign contributions, just like other candidates that I have yet to even mention to you yet. So that's just the first piece of the puzzle. So now, while Trump has not indicated that he would refuse to run again come 2020, prospective candidates for the next presidential election 4 years from now are looking towards very wealthy political leaders for future campaign donations. making political connections with conservative interest groups and tactfully adding to their resume, actually. While Trump is right now is president just for only 7 months, can you imagine the controversy surrounding Trump's so-called quote-unquote unpredictable presidency, according to some people, most recently involving the Robert Mueller investigation, even motivating some dignitaries in political power to potentially replace him and defeat him come November 2020 for the second term, so that he doesn't get a second term? I can't even fathom it. White House spokesman actually Lindsey Walters said last week that Trump could undoubtedly win a second term in office. So a lot of people think he could still win, but all 75 Republicans who were interviewed, who both constitute as donors and strategists, alongside their political jobs representing Americans down in Washington, of course, they were interviewed, and they were asked about the coveted seat, about in the Oval Office, about who would run and who would make it. And they said that they even doubt Donald Trump will even be on the 2020 ballot. So isn't that really interesting, don't you think? A chunk of our current president's own political party doesn't even support him. That is so disappointing as a country in one respect, though. But while others may think that is just an absolute blessing, since anti-Trump individuals in this country want him to be out of office. I mean, look at all the anti-Trump protests that are still happening. It has still been said that while he took some leading members of the Republican Party, he is in fact the instance that changed the rules of the inter-party politics when he received the Republican nomination president in his run for the White House last year. So we're talking about Trump. So we basically changed the inter-party politics. And now politicians making connections with political leaders, and that's happening right now, and they're encouraging donations from wealthy, notably donors, to hopefully help secure a successful campaign for the White House as Trump finished up his first term in office. So that's what they're planning to do. Pence's advisors actually are saying that he will in fact run in time for the 2020 presidential race, and only if Trump by chance does not go for the second term in office. Experts call Pence a pace setter, keep him busy with a school of political events every day, but at the same time he's created an independent power base. And this independent power base was to secure the status as Trump's successor come the next presidential election, just in case. And that will be putting himself on top as the big channel of communication between the Republican donor class and the administration. So right now, VP Pence has his own political fundraising committee called the Great America Committee. And of course, I'm not sure if anyone really knows that. And this committee has put petitions regarding the most notorious Republicans from spilling the beans of his intentions to actually maybe run for office. Jack Oliver actually has helped the group become what it is today, and the institution has even surpassed the primary political group of Trump called American First Nation. That's his campaign group, which has pulled in even more voice donations for Pence's potential campaign. Pence also inducted this guy called Nick Ayers, a man with a lot of campaign experience, but actually doesn't have any background working for the federal government, surprisingly, as the new chief of staff. So he's sworn as the new chief of staff, and this was a striking contrast to the tradition of past 5 presidents promoting a government veteran to be top staff member down, in Washington. So really, a lot of things have changed with the Trump presidency and Pence. And then with all this talk about Pence running for the White House, and then within the next 4 years, still remaining at Trump's side. So that's really great news. Of course, that's what a VP really should do: sticking with him, praising his efforts regarding what he's doing for this country, even privately bowing to him in the Oval Office. So I actually even came across that. Pence is still fulfilling his vice presidential duties, and while at the same time he's cementing his own identity. And he's calling on high-ranking politicians at the same time to help fund his prospective presidential campaign. So that's really great. He keeps up and participates in large political events like for the Ohio Republican caucus, like the pig roast held by Senator Joni Hurst. But he still does not neglect intimate donor gatherings after making his appearance at these prestigious functions for the Republican Party. Now, Pence also has turned his residence into even a center for forming political connections. And he opened his mansion just this past June to conservative activists like David H. Koch. So this is all the big guys coming in. Already amping up campaign fundraising efforts, politicians and Cotton and Sass, these are the 2 new guys in the new political arena, among the 2 potential candidates along with current Vice President Pence. And all these guys are all eyeing the Oval Office as well. Beyond Washington, actually, is also preparing to run, and Nikki Haley is also doing her part in making political connections to facilitate funding for her potential campaign. She maybe enters the ballot come 2020. Haley's also sculpting, actually, her foreign policy tactics in her mind, learned during her current occupation as UN ambassador. So in short, Cotton, Sass, Beyond Washington, Nikki Haley, and Pence are right now potential running mates for the 2020 presidency of the United States. And Pence, just to wrap it all up, is making strides to secure a successful campaign should Trump decide to not to run, while other politicians are making moves to most likely run for the White House. And we shall see how it turns out come the campaign trail. But for now, we'll need to focus on the current issues during the term of our current president, President Donald Trump, and look forward, hopefully, for better things to come. And that concludes our Politics Corner here at Rizzo TV HD News. Just stay tuned for your local weather forecast. We're going to be skipping the traffic update today because we are in the evening hours for this newscast. But I'm sure you guys are really going to be wanting to know what's going on with the weather at least. So since we took up so much time with the Politics Corner and the news put together, we're going to get to your local forecast just a moment. So please stay tuned for your Rizzo TV HD weather forecast.
Taking a look at your current forecast right here in Dyker Heights, Brooklyn, we're currently sitting at a dew point level of the uncomfortable category. We're actually at a dew point right now of 67 degrees, and that's pretty uncomfortable, really close to what we saw during the heat wave just about a month ago, but not as extreme. It's luckily that our temperatures aren't that warm. We've been flirting with 82, 83, flirting close to 85 degrees today. Really didn't get that quite up there today. But not right now. We're sitting in the mid to upper 70s. But when you go at the dew point, even at that uncomfortable level, it really starts to feel pretty muggy outside, and you just want to go right inside and have some air conditioning and ice cold water. And that's what really makes it feel, really uncomfortable as far as that dew point. So really, dew point again in the uncomfortable category at exactly 67 degrees. Stay tuned for your local forecast. So for tonight, Human Mugs, really pretty muggy tonight. Going to be really cloudy and muggy in anticipation for some stormy activity moving into the tri-state area come tomorrow. But again, Human with clouds and muggy tonight, a low tonight of 73 degrees. And tomorrow, we're looking at, as I mentioned, scattered thunderstorms, scattered precipitation with some thunderstorm activity, really moving into the tri-state area come tomorrow. Temperature won't be that high because we're going to have this stormy activity and rain, kind of keeping the temperatures pretty much down. But it's still going to be quite warm, at least for a rainstorm, because we're going to be sitting in the lower 80s. And again, still going to be humid. Scattered thunderstorms are expected throughout the day tomorrow, so definitely plan to bring an umbrella. If you do see any thunderstorms or any thunder or lightning in the vicinity of where you are and outside, be sure to seek shelter immediately, because being outside is actually the dangerous place to be during a thunderstorm, obviously. Imagine that. So again, tomorrow, humid with scattered thunderstorms, a high tomorrow of 82 degrees. And tomorrow night, we're going to be clearing out, but it's still going to be slightly humid. We're going to have these lingering humid conditions and this lingering humid air mass that's going to be slowly dissipating out of the tri-state area come tomorrow night. Because we're going to have those scattered thunderstorms throughout the day tomorrow, the humid conditions will still be sticking around for your evening tomorrow night. So again, tomorrow night, clearing out, a bit humid, a low tomorrow night of 71 degrees.
And thank you for watching this edition of Rizzo TV HD News, Weather, and Traffic. Remember to always follow us on Instagram at JRNewsman17 and on Twitter at JRiz11. You can also find all of our episodes posted on our Facebook page, Rizzo TV News. Thank you so much for watching. Have a great night.